college is a time for students to delve into a diverse environment of individuals and ideas. The term safe spaces, however, has become a term used on college campuses to refer to areas in which the people that gather there agree to avoid any controversial speech to protect students who might feel troubled by these controversies. However, how do these safe spaces prepare students for life beyond the university? And do they come at the price of limiting free speech? Safe spaces have become entwined in the debate over the decline in free speech on college campuses, adding another layer to this development. Safe spaces do not reflect the many controversial issues that students will have to face once they leave school, and therefore, these spaces shield students from growth rather than help students develop. These spaces also limit the range of views that are allowed to be expressed on campus. Yes, some students might actually need help when having to confront specific topics. However, this should be dealt with on an individual basis and not spark movements to limit expression on a large scale. The creation and promotion of these safe spaces is extremely important for college students, college faculty, and society at large because the culture that these spaces will create will not only affect the college experience, but also affect the values that these students will live their lives with. The first casualty of safe spaces is that they further factionalize the student body instead of promoting toleration. The LA Times points to a group of Oberlin College students who, in a 14-page list of demands, asked that spaces throughout the Oberlin College campus be designated as a safe space for Africana-identifying students. Safe spaces for a specific category of students simply separates these students more from the rest of the student body. Secondly, safe spaces limit the diversity of ideas and speech, and therefore student growth is stunted by a lack of confrontation. Van Jones, a CNN contributor, addressed students saying, "I want you to be offended every single day on campus. I want you to be deeply aggrieved and offended and upset and then learn how to speak back." Former President Barack Obama described his experience expressing his views in college, saying, "They'd look at me and say, 'Well, that's stupid,' and then they describe how they saw the world. There was this space where you could interact with people who didn't agree with you." In the words of one New York Times columnist, "Shield them from unfamiliar ideas and they'll never learn the discipline of seeing the world as other people see it." And if this attitude continues, then more and more expression will be included in what is forbidden, according to author Nat Hentoff. Safe spaces limit both the ability for expression as well as protect students from the growth they could experience from being exposed to other ideas. The protection of free speech is essential to ensuring development and success for college students. Next, these spaces also promote action to halt conversational speech and attempts to make the rest of campus safer. An article from the New York Times argues that once you designate some spaces as safe, you imply that the rest are unsafe. According to the Washington Post, a nationwide survey of 1,500 undergraduate students at four-year colleges done by a UCLA professor shows that 1 in 5 students at universities think that it is acceptable for students to silence offensive or upsetting speech instead of verbally disagreeing or simply ignoring it. However, Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis once pointed out that the solution to hateful or offensive speech is not enforced silence, but more speech. Safe spaces keep students in their own little bubble, which is very concerning considering that more students are okay with using violence to silence offensive speech. Finally, this free flow of ideas has to be balanced with the thorough protection from all physical harm of the students. This also includes threats of harm. Hate crime and hate speech have to be distinguished between. The Journal of College Student Development states that hate speech involves expression, albeit crude and offensive, whereas hate crime involves a criminal act, usually characterized by physical harm against an individual, group of individuals, or personal property. New York Law School professor Nadine Strawson highlights that speech only becomes punishable if it presents an evident and pressing promise of harm to others. Some say that we have to work to protect students, because as one NPR segment questions, are we so sure that the rhetoric of common humanity and rights for all races will prevail? While this is an ever-looming question, there has to be a balance between protecting students and protecting their ability to grow by listening to opinions that oppose their own. College students need to be exposed to a variety of views, and given the opportunity to practice defending their opinions against others so that they can continue to grow and develop. This growth is essential to student success not only in college, but also beyond as they enter the workforce, where there are no safe spaces. Safe spaces succeed in separating students into unnecessary categories and play a big role in increasing the regulation of speech on campuses, which proves harmful to students' growth and development. Let's keep college a place where students are surrounded by eager intellectual investigation and a great diversity of people and opinions.